Your friend just got engaged, and your first thought isn't happiness for them. Instead, it's something like, why them and not me? That's the first thought coming to you. Or let's take another case. Your colleague gets the promotion you wanted, and instead of feeling inspired, you feel smaller, diminished, like almost as if their success somehow takes something away from others. Or you see someone's perfect looking life on Instagram, the relationships, the travel, the career, and instead of feeling motivated, you feel bitter, resentful, like the universe is unfair in some way and you're being left behind. This is jealousy, or maybe it's envy, or maybe it's both, and you're not even sure which is which and why it even matters. All you know is that you feel it. Here's what most people don't know: jealousy and envy are psychologically very, very different. They're different emotions. And understanding the difference is very important. It's crucial because one of them can actually strengthen relationships, believe it or not, whilst the other corrodes them from the inside. I'm Rahul Nair from the Huddle Institute of Psychology, Philosophy, and Spirituality, and welcome to episode 12 of season 3. Today, we are going deep into the psychology of jealousy and envy, why we feel them, what they're actually telling us, and how to work with them instead of letting them destroy our connections and relationships. So, let's begin by clearing up the confusion. Jealousy and envy are not the same thing. Let me clarify. Let's begin with jealousy. Jealousy is basically the fear of losing something you have. Let me repeat that. Jealousy is the fear of losing something you have. It's a three-person dynamic: you, another person, and a third person who threatens the connection. You're jealous when you fear your partner might be attracted to someone else. That's jealousy. when you worry your best friend is getting closer to a new friend and might abandon you. That's jealousy. When you're afraid your child will love the other parent more, that's jealousy. Envy, on the other hand, is wanting something someone else has that you don't have. That's envy. Let me repeat. Envy is wanting something someone else has that you don't. It's a two-person dynamic. You and the person who has what you want. Your envy, you envy your colleague's promotion. You, or let's look at it like this, your friend's seemingly perfect relationship is something to be envious about. Your siblings' financial success is something to be envious about. That's envy. Now, both are painful, both are deeply human, but they serve different psychological functions and require different kinds of responses. Now, here's why this matters. Jealousy, when it's not pathological, can actually be protective. It's your nervous system saying, this relationship matters. I don't want to lose it. That information can be useful. Envy, on the other hand, almost never serves you well. Never. It's your mind telling you that someone else's gain is your loss. That's what it is telling you. That happiness is a zero-sum game. That their success diminishes your worth. And in a world designed to amplify envy, where social media shows you a curated highlight reel of everyone else's lives, envy has become one of the most pervasive sources of quiet suffering. From a systems perspective, both jealousy and envy shape relational dynamics. Jealousy can create controlling behaviors, obviously, that destroy the very connection you're trying to protect. Envy creates distance and resentment in relationships that could otherwise be supportive. So, in this episode, we are going to break down the psychology of each emotion, how they show up in different contexts, and how to move from the destructive versions, pathological jealousy and corrosive envy, to healthier responses. That's what we will aim to do in this episode. So, let's understand first the psychological framework or the psychology of jealousy and envy. Let's begin with jealousy, the fear of loss. Jealousy is fundamentally about attachment and threat. Jealousy is fundamentally about attachment and threat. When you love someone romantically, platonically, familially, you become psychologically dependent on that connection. Not in an unhealthy way necessarily, but in a real way. In a real way. Their presence in your life matters to your well being. Jealousy is what happens when that connection feels threatened, when someone else might take your place, the notion that someone else might take your place. You might be replaced. The bond you rely on might weaken or dissolve. This is rooted in evolutionary psychology. Let me explain. Early humans who didn't care about losing their mate or their tribe were less likely to survive and reproduce. Jealousy kept people bonded. Jealousy kept people together, bonded, and alert to threats to those bonds. So, a certain amount of jealousy is normal and even healthy. It's your attachment system working as it should, as designed. But, of course, jealousy can become pathological. In other words, a problem. Jealousy becomes pathological when it's disproportionate to actual threat. In other words, constant suspicion with no evidence. When it leads to controlling behavior. In other words, always monitoring and restricting and interrogating the other person. When it's based on your insecurity rather than their behavior. When it creates the very outcome you actually fear. In other words, jealous control pushes people away. Now, here's where attachment theory becomes extremely crucial to our understanding of jealousy patterns. People with anxious attachment tend to experience heightened jealousy. Their nervous system is kind of primed to detect threats to connection. So they scan for signs of abandonment. A partner talking to someone attractive? Oh, that's a threat. A friend making a new friend? Oh, that's a threat. Right? So this isn't paranoia. It's a nervous system that learned early on that connection is unreliable. Connections are unreliable. So it stays hyper vigilant for any signs of loss. That's anxious attachment. So people with anxious attachment tend to have heightened sense of jealousy. People with avoidant attachment style may experience less overt jealousy, but they may withdraw when they feel threatened rather than fighting for connection. Or they might deny jealousy entirely, even when it's influencing their behavior. So that's avoidant attachment. Securely attached people, on the other hand, feel jealousy too. It's possible. But they are more likely to communicate about it directly and work through it collaboratively rather than letting it spiral into control or withdrawal kinds of behaviors. That's for people with secure attachment styles. Let's now talk about envy, the desire for what others have. Envy is psychologically different. It's not about protecting what you have, it's about wanting what someone else has. And here's what makes envy so painful: it's wrapped up in social comparison and self worth. When you envy someone, you're not just recognizing that they have something you want. You're making it mean something about you. Let me repeat. When you envy someone, you're not just recognizing that they have something you want. You're making it mean something about you, yourself. Their success means you're failing. Their happiness means you're less worthy. Their gains feel like your losses. There's something about you. This is social comparison theory in action. Humans are wired to assess their standing relative to others. We are. In small communities, this made sense. Your status relative to this group affected your survival and reproduction. But in the modern world in which we live now, social media has kind of exploded the reference group entirely, right? So you're no longer comparing yourself to your immediate community any longer. No longer. That's not the case. You're comparing yourself to everyone, everywhere, all the time. And that comparison is killing the idea of contentment. We are less content. Now, what's the evolutionary purpose of envy? Does it even have one? Well, envy, from an evolutionary point of view, was meant to motivate improvement. To motivate improvement in you. If someone in your tribe had better hunting skills, envying their success could push you to develop those skills yourself. But that only works if, one, the thing you envy is actually attainable for you. Two, the envy actually motivates action rather than resentment. So the motivation thing actually works only if, one, if the thing you envy is actually attainable to you, for you. Two, the envy motivates action rather than resentment. Now, in modern contexts, much of what we envy isn't attainable through effort alone. like genetic traits, family, wealth, luck, structural advantages, etc. So the envy just sits there, corroding. Let me repeat. In modern context, much of what we envy is isn't attainable just through effort alone. Things like genetic traits and family wealth and luck and structural advantages, all these things. So the envy just kind of sits there corroding. Here's the psychological trap. When you're focused on what others have, you can't fully appreciate what you have. You must have heard that before, but it is important to remind ourselves. When you're focused on what others have, you cannot fully focus or appreciate what you have. You might have a genuinely good relationship, but if you're comparing it to someone's Instagram perfect relationship, yours will always feel lacking. You might have meaningful work, but if you're always comparing your career trajectory to someone who's advancing faster in their career, your work will feel inadequate. This isn't about gratitude washing real problems. It really isn't. If you're genuinely struggling, you're genuinely struggling. But envy specifically, the focus on what others have, prevents you from accurately assessing your own life. It distorts your perspective. It hijacks your contentment. Now, the opposite of jealousy, is it? Here's a concept that most people haven't heard of: compersion. Compersion is feeling joy in someone else's joy. Feeling joy in someone else's joy. It's the opposite of jealousy and envy. It's genuinely celebrating someone's success without it in any way diminishing you. This isn't natural for most people, it's a skill. It requires cognitive flexibility. And we talked about that in previous episodes. Basically, the ability to hold two truths simultaneously. In this case, they are experiencing something wonderful, and that doesn't take anything away from me or from my life. Their happiness doesn't diminish mine. People who develop this capacity, they tend to report significantly more satisfaction in their relationships and in life generally, because instead of every success creating a zero sum dynamic, success becomes something everyone can celebrate together. So that is once again the role of cognitive flexibility in action. Now, let's look at jealousy and envy through a systems lens. Jealousy as a signal of perceived threat to the relationship system. Let's look at it from that point of view. From a systems perspective, jealousy is information. It is. It's a signal that something in the relational system feels unstable or threatened. It's a source of information. It's a signal. Sometimes that threat is real. Your partner is actually behaving in ways that weaken the relationship. In that case, jealousy is data you should pay attention to. But often the threat is not real. It's your internal insecurity projecting threat onto some kind of neutral behaviors. Neutral behaviors. Your partner talks to a colleague, not a threat. But your anxious attachment system interprets it as a threat. The system question is the jealousy responding to genuine system instability, or is it creating instability where none existed in the first place? That's the system question to ask. Now, here's the tragic feedback loop that jealousy often creates, self-fulfilling prophecies, so to speak. You fear losing your partner, you become controlling, checking their phone, questioning their friendships, demanding constant reassurances. They feel kind of suffocated and pull away. You interpret the distance as confirmation that they are losing interest. You control more, they withdraw more. The relationship actually does deteriorate. This is once again an example of circular causality in action. The jealousy creates the very outcome it fears. From a systems perspective, pathological jealousy doesn't protect the relationship, it destabilizes it. The leverage point is breaking the loop, as it always is. Feeling the jealousy, but choosing a different response. Vulnerability, direct communication, instead of control or controlling behaviors. What about envy? Envy doesn't exist in isolation, as most things don't. It's created and amplified by systems we are embedded in. So, for example, in a culture that valorizes wealth, you will envy financial success. In a culture that valorizes beauty, you will envy physical attractiveness. In a culture that valorizes productivity, you will envy those who seem to accomplish more and more. Social media is a system specifically designed to amplify envy. Everyone curates their best moments. You see the highlight reel, not the struggle. And your brain interprets that as everyone else is thriving, I'm falling behind. This creates a system level problem. And what is it? Not just you have an envy issue, but you're embedded in a system that generates envy by design. That's a problem. Understanding this doesn't eliminate the feeling, but it helps you contextualize it, right? The envy isn't a personal failing. It's important for me to emphasize that. Your envy is not a personal failing per se, it's a predictable response to being in a comparison amplifying system. If you're in a comparison amplifying system, then envy is a natural consequence of that system, the natural outcome of such a system. Now, what about breaking the jealousy control distance cycle? The system intervention for pathological jealousy is surprisingly simple. Surprisingly simple, uh, conceptually at least, though, let's say, emotionally difficult. When you feel jealous, instead of controlling, get vulnerable. I'm feeling insecure right now. When you talk about your colleague, I feel jealous. I know that's my issue to work on, but I wanted you to know what's happening for me. That's being vulnerable. This changes the system dynamic entirely. Instead of control creating distance, vulnerability invites connection. Your partner can reassure you. You can work through the insecurity together. The loop shifts from negative to positive. So, let's look at some real world examples. Romantic jealousy. Let's begin with that. Sarah's partner has started working closely with a colleague. They text about work after hours. Sarah begins to feel jealous. Pathological response? She demands to see the texts, messages. She questions every interaction, makes her partner feel controlled and mistrusted, and he begins to pull away. Her jealousy increases. What would a healthier response be? I'm feeling jealous and I know that's my own insecurity, but I'd feel better if we talked about it. Can you help me understand the nature of your working relationship with them? The that kind of opens dialogue. This opens dialogue instead of creating defensiveness. Let's look at another one. Sibling envy. Raj feels like his parents always favored his sister. That's what he feels. She was the academic success, he was the disappointment. Now, as adults, he feels envious of her career, her confidence, her relationship with her parents, everything. The envy creates distance. He avoids family gatherings, makes passive aggressive comments. The relationship deteriorates more and more. What would a healthier approach be? Recognizing the envy, grieving what he didn't get, parental approval, and consciously choosing whether to work on the relationship or create distance for his own well being, but based on a clear choice, not just festering resentment. That's an example. Again, another one could be from the workplace, about a promoted colleague, like we talked about. Chen and her colleague started at the same time. The colleague just got promoted. Chen feels envious and then ashamed of the envy. The envy could motivate? What can I learn from their trajectory? What skills do I need to develop? Or it could corrode. The system is unfair, they just got lucky, I'll never succeed. So, these are some real world examples of how um, jealousy and envy plays out in real life. Now, once again, cognitive flexibility here in the in our scenarios means holding both truths. They earned, for example, in the workplace scenario, they earned this promotion through their skills. And the system also includes luck and bias. Fine. Holding both truths is cognitive flexibility. Their success doesn't diminish my worth in any way. Right? So, again, that is cognitive flexibility. And once again, it is very, very important that we maintain cognitive flexibility throughout these scenarios so that we can be as adaptive and as flexible as possible. Now, practical examples we went through, we looked at some examples. What about applications? How do you actually work with jealousy and envy in healthy ways? So, let's begin with jealousy. Number one, distinguish between information and catastrophizing. What I mean by this is when you feel jealous, ask yourself, is there genuine cause for concern? They are actually behaving in ways that threaten the relationship? Or is this my anxiety creating scenarios that are not really happening? Ask yourself that clarifying question. If it's real concern, then address it directly. I've noticed X behavior and it's making me feel insecure about our relationship. Can we talk about it? Be direct. If it's anxiety, then work on the anxiety, not the other person's behavior. Not the other person's behavior. So that's the first thing. Distinguish between information and catastrophizing. Number two, communicate your vulnerability, not control. So instead of who were you texting, why are you always on your phone, try, I've been feeling insecure lately. It's not about anything you've done. I'm just noticing jealous thoughts. Can we talk about it? Vulnerability, always remember, invites connection. Control creates distance. Third, work on your own sense of security. Pathological jealousy is usually rooted in internal insecurity, inside, not the other person's behavior. Therapy, particularly attachment focused therapy, can help you develop secure attachment, the capacity to trust connection, even when you start feeling anxious. So, work on your own sense of security. Number four is assess the relationship honestly. If your jealousy is responding to real red flags, then, for example, they're being secretive, they dismiss your concerns, they actually begin to be unfaithful to you, then use that as data. That's real data. Don't gaslight yourself into thinking all jealousy is irrational. Sometimes it's your instinct telling you something is genuinely off that you need to consider. So assess the relationship as honestly as you can. Then, coming to envy, as far as envy is concerned, firstly, notice the envy without the shame. Acknowledge it. Envy is a normal human emotion. Feeling it doesn't make you a bad person. Denying it just gives it more power. The I'm, it's always important to feel and acknowledge and be real and say, I'm feeling envious of their success. That's uncomfortable and it's real. So notice it without any shame. Secondly, investigate what the envy is pointing to. Envy usually highlights an unmet need or value. If you envy someone's career success, for example, maybe you value achievement and feel in some way stalled in your own work. If you envy someone's relationship, maybe you value partnership and feel or you are currently feeling lonely. The envy isn't necessarily the problem, it's information about what matters to you. You need to notice that and take note of that. Number three, shift from comparison to inspiration when possible. So, if what you envy is attainable and genuinely aligned with your values, then there's nothing wrong in using it as a source of motivation to push you forward. They achieved X. What can I learn from their path? What actions? What actions can I take toward my own version of that? Ask yourself. But if it's not attainable, like luck, genetics, etc., just let it go. Comparison will only make you miserable. Number four, practice cognitive flexibility. I cannot overstate this. Hold this truth. Their success doesn't diminish mine. There isn't a finite amount of success, happiness, love in the world. Their gain is not my loss. This is not a zero sum game. Curate your inputs. In other words, if social media makes you feel more and more envious and miserable, then limit your exposure. Stop looking and scrolling down those feeds. Unfollow accounts that make you feel bad about your life. Look at more inspirational stuff. This isn't avoidance, it's recognizing that you're in a system designed to generate envy and just simply opting out. That's what you're doing, protecting yourself. Number six, celebrate others genuinely. This sounds trite, but it's psychologically very, very powerful. When someone you know succeeds, practice genuine celebration. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. That's not trite. It's very powerful. This builds what is called compersion, the capacity to feel joy in other people's joy. And paradoxically, the more you can celebrate others, the less envious you will feel. And now, for as far as both are concerned, again, develop cognitive flexibility, seek support if it's overwhelming. If jealousy is destroying your relationships or envy is making you chronically miserable, then that's a sign, that's a signal that you need help. A therapist can help you work through the underlying insecurity or grief or unmet needs driving the feelings. Now, as far as parents are concerned, again, when your child feels jealous of a sibling, for example, or envious of a friend, validate their feelings. It makes sense. Tell them it makes sense that you feel upset seeing your friend get something you wanted. Then help them develop cognitive flexibility. They get something good. They got something good. That doesn't mean you won't get good things too. Tell them that. There's enough good things in this world to go around. You will have them too. Model celebration. Your sister won her game. Let's celebrate with her. This teaches them that other people's success doesn't threaten or diminish their own sense of worth and success. That's very, very important. And when it comes to sibling dynamics, jealousy between siblings is normal, but chronic favoritism creates envy that lasts into adulthood. Make sure each child feels genuinely seen and valued for who they are, not just compared to their sibling. So now we're coming to a close of this episode, and here's what I really want you to take away. Jealousy and envy are different emotions serving different psychological functions. Jealousy is the fear of losing connection. In healthy amounts, it's protective, but when it becomes pathological, rooted in insecurity rather than the real threat, it creates the very outcome it fears. Envy, on the other hand, is wanting what others have. And in a world designed to amplify comparison, envy has become a pervasive source of suffering. The antidote isn't denying the feeling, it's really about investigating what it's pointing towards. What is the envy pointing to? And developing cognitive flexibility, the capacity to hold the idea that their success doesn't diminish mine. Now, from a systems perspective, both emotions are information about how you're relating to your environment. Jealousy signals that perceived threat to connection. Envy signals values you care about or comparisons you're embedded in. The leverage point is noticing the feeling, understanding what it's telling you, and choosing your response consciously. Choosing your response as consciously as you can rather than letting the emotion get the better of you, rather than letting the emotion control your behavior. So that was today's episode. This episode closes month 3 of emotional intelligence and manipulation, and we've covered the difference between authentic emotional intelligence and weaponized emotional intelligence. the psychology of passive aggression, and now jealousy and envy. Next month, we are moving into the area of communication fundamentals, active listening, vulnerability, digital communication, and also the art of saying no, the building blocks of healthy relationships. Coming back to today's episode, if you've struggled with jealousy or envy, let me know in the comments what's helped you in your life to work through it. Do share your ideas and thoughts in the comments below. So that's all for this episode about jealousy and envy. I hope this has been educational and informational for you. Hope it proves to be useful in your daily life. So thank you so much for staying with me and watching this episode. See you again in the next one. Ciao for now.